is right now is we've spent some time talking about the front end of a professional career here as a physician, and I'm thinking, if someone may happen upon this conversation that is in mid-career and having challenges and trying to figure out, how do I eke out 1 hour? My mind also goes to these new positions now that are called um, wellness officers, chief wellness officers in organizations, and taking this kind of conversation and this kind of thought, and how do we how does that get incorporated into a wellness program for a large number of physicians for an organization of, this is an important thing. How does that look? How does that get valued so that we are supporting the ability to start to carve away some of the time to reinvest in oneself? I think that's got to also be looked at too, not just on the front end that we've spent some time talking about, but really we have an entire workforce out there. And Dale, you alluded to it a little bit ago. We have a resignation that seems to be happening because if I can't figure it out, then I throw up my hands and I'm done. And
Ronnie,
that's a loss. That's a
it
big loss.
it's a huge loss, and you want to take it to the extreme too. As you were talking about this, and Deb said something, and everybody has said something that just reminded me of this tragic event of the past weekend, where you've got this young woman, Miss USA. Obviously, talk about a bell curve. This woman was ahead of the curve on everything, academically, physical appearance, all this stuff. Prime of her life, age 30, had achieved so much, and felt this desperation to the point, or some pain or whatever it was, that prompted her to just hurl herself off a high-rise building in Manhattan and just end it all. And I think of that situation. She was an attorney on top of everything else too, did pro bono work, but something, I sensed that she probably was trying to solve her problems by herself all the time, or felt that she didn't have that other person that could relate, or whoever, there was something lacking there. And so maybe trying to mask this by continuing to achieve more and more, keep doing and doing. I don't know what your all thoughts are, but I'm hearing this, Rhonda. You really kind of touched on this too. When we try and go it alone all the time, that can lead to something far worse than just leaving the profession. And this is something that we have to be cognizant of as well.
Well, we have the stats to demonstrate that we have that within the profession, that unfortunately has been an option that has been taken way too many times. But it is all part and parcel of being able to separate what you do and who you are, and allow yourself the ability to have other outlets. So I don't know what that unfortunate situation was and what the details were, but I've witnessed many in the field of medicine that unfortunately have had the same results. And it's part of the reason why we're having these types of conversations, so that we take it out from the shadows and let's talk about it a little bit more, so we may be able to assist others to normalize and make it okay to have this kind of conversation and take steps and actions to preserve and support.
Well, I haven't, I've been fortunate. I'm semi-retired and I haven't had to deal with things, and maybe Dale and others who are recently retired. But when things changed around early 2000s, and where people had to, in primary care, you have to see so many people, you have to see you can't spend 30 minutes with somebody. If you block everything out to make the money that you're supposed to be making and pay your overhead and everything else, you have to see this stuff. And I saw the primary care doctors, being in the office till 7 or 8 o'clock, because it went to to the electronic medical records. It was all brand new stuff, and they hadn't set up all their stuff. And, you know, they had to see their obligatory X number of patients and then get the paperwork done. And so that you're back to medical school again, saying, I only have X number of hours in a day to get this work done, and then that I don't have time for anything else. And fortunately, I don't have to deal with that, but I think you did, didn't you, Dale?
And what I want to say is, going back to kind of Rhonda kind of kicked us off, what does the chief wellness officer do with this information? You know, primary care clinicians, they all have a half a day off, like you said that you had. Well, guess what they're doing with that half a day off? It's the average. Yeah, exactly. So the average amount of time that I think it's all physicians, but predominantly primary care, spends doing charting is 2 hours per night. And so if you have a half a day, that's kind of what you're doing. And so, yeah, we have a lot of work to do on the systems level of, you know, it's that continued double messaging. It's like, you got to do this if you want to be an employee here. And yeah, we care about your well-being too.
Yeah, we became commodities at some point. We went from having a certain amount of autonomy and getting to use creativity, which you talked about plenty today, you know, having that ability to practice the art of medicine. Now you're just basically a technician. You're a commodity. You've got to produce. You got to follow this thing and that thing. And it just sucks the life out of people, and it sucks their soul too. And so, you know, we talked about what happens when you stifle people's creativity.
Yep.
There you go.
I had a little something on the topic, was a resolve, like, why am I here when in practice? And in rural America and probably everywhere else, you know, I did General ENT, which means I took care of all ages. In Kansas and Missouri, over half of the kids are on Medicaid. They just are. And you don't get paid diddly for doing their stuff. You almost lose money.
Right.
And so my average monthly was like 30 to 35% or more of my patients were Medicaid. And it's like, okay, I'm making enough money. I still have my first wife. I have one house. I take nice vacations. I'm not paying a second wife. I don't have a house at the lake, and, you know, that kind of stuff. And I had colleagues or partners, whatever you want to call them, who started to refuse to take Medicaid and Medicare patients because they weren't, you know, paying them enough or whatever. And so, you know, again, is setting those boundaries. What is enough? You know, and to me, it was like real easy. It's like, well, I got into this to take care of folks, and I have enough. I mean, it just is.
You just hit the key question. What is enough?
Thank you so much for joining our discussion today. If you'd like to learn more about our guest, head on over to our Patreon page, where you can access exclusive content, including the full segment of our show. Never want to miss an Inside the Doctor's Lounge clip? Be sure to click the subscribe button to our MD Coaches YouTube channel. As always, we appreciate suggestions for future show topics, so let us know what you're thinking in the comments below. And finally, special thanks to Ryan Jones, who created and performs our theme music for the show.